Hey everybody, this is Talkative Carl back again for another movie spoiler review. And today we'll be talking about Keanu Reeves and Al Pacino movie The Devil's Advocate. And yeah, just as great as I remember. I'm not a huge horror guy, really. But the handful that I do enjoy, I probably stick to more so than anything. Uh, but The Devil's Advocate is a pretty well done movie. Uh, actually, Keanu Reeves actually turned down uh, the role to be recasted in Speed 2 in order to do this film. And honestly, I think he made the right choice. And yeah, obviously, like I said, it stars Charlize Theron as well. Uh, you know, yeah, Jeffrey Jones, Craig T. Nelson, Connie Nielsen. So it's a pretty dang good cast. So Keanu Reeves, as Kevin Lomax, who's a defense attorney in Gainesville, Florida. Is it Gainesville? Yeah, Gainesville. I don't know why I want to think Gatsville for some reason, but yeah, he's representing this teacher being accused of child molestation against one of his students, this teenage girl who's like on the stand. Uh, Now, normally, like a lawyer is a defense attorney, you know, has well, I also don't know about has to, but they have to defend their client to the best of their ability. Now, this is like a whole crisis of conscience that Kevin's feeling right now, given the fact that this dude was sitting there feeling on himself while this woman's giving her testimony, which discussed Reeves. So, oh, not Reeves, Lomax. So he excuses himself to go to the bathroom to collect himself. And after he has his talk with uh uh this reporter guy, uh he resigns himself to, like, you know what, I gotta win, because will be his 64th case win, and he hasn't lost a case. And this plays to the whole vanity aspect of this character. And so he refused to have any blemish on his record right now. So he goes in, just for if excuse the pun, he crucified this girl on the stand, despite his conscience trying to tell him otherwise. And of course, he meets up later on with this lawyer from New York, who offers him like a very hefty check just to come all the way from Florida to New York to help with his jury selection. And him and his wife, Marianne, played by Charlize Theron, go up there despite the disapproval of Lomax's mother, who's a very like a fundamentalist, very like a church going kind of woman. As he puts it, she's either at the church or working at some kind of mill or something like that, and then or just helping out with the church in some charitable fashion. So it's like one of the three places. And he goes to the jury selection, which is kind of fun. It's, where he's like, kind of like the, he was like a big fish in a small pond. Now he's in like the big leagues now. Now he really got to like really prove his mettle here. And so he states, you know, while it's like him and a bunch of other people from this law firm doing the jury selection, and he's like, looking over, and he calls the guy over, and he has a huddle with his partners, and he mentions about like, okay, lose like the school marm and the black guy there because they're not gonna be impartial, pretty much. And he points out specifically like the school marm, because he said that'll be his first choice to cut because she may look innocent, but the way she's, because I gotta admit, like the way Reeves playing his character is pretty much like he's like so excellent at jury selection, more than anything. The fact that he knows how to read people, and he can easily read that, she's damn. He puts it. She's damn as goods. She obviously wants to revenge. She wants to be on this jury because she just wants to just hurt somebody. So you can't like count on her to be impartial. You got to get her out of here. And despite like the lawyer who's supposed to be like doing the talking, but the black lawyer who brought him from Florida is backing Lomax all the way. By the way, when he meets up with his lawyer, given the fact that it was 1997 and we kind of glossed over it, but it's a line read from Reeves, mentions like you're really good, and the black thing, you being black, that was pretty good. You really go out and it's kind of like, not necessarily racist, but it's like, well, it's Florida, but it's not necessarily racist. It's just like, well, racist in a way like he's surprised there's like a black lawyer. Like it's like, it's like it's very like pulling out all the stops kind of situation. Like I don't know. I always thought that was kind of weird, even back then, him saying that line. But it's kind of like, it behooved me not to even mention that. But it is just that, but with the proper changes, that case that, he was, filling in on turns out to win because of his, because it was like a test essentially, and he passed it. So the lawyer from the firm brought him over. I keep wanting to say him the lawyer. I cannot recall that man's name. Lehman Heath. That was her name, Lehman Heath, and he brought him to the firm and to meet the boss. And you meet Al Pacino's character, John Milton. I mean, this movie is pretty much like took like a lot of inspiration from several books like Faust, Paradise Lost, Dante's Inferno, and you get like, and like of course like Paradise Lost, and John Milton is named, like they got the character's name from the one who wrote Paradise Lost, and I thought that was pretty cool. And I didn't find out till like years later about the whole, after like after the Dante's Inferno video game, and I got really like into like the story, and I got the thing on Audible like a long time ago, and like upon research around that time I found out about like Paradise Lost and like John Milton and everything like that. So it's like, oh well, it's like tit for tat. So after I rewatched this film, I like all that starts to like hit a little bit different than it did when I was younger when I watched this. So he meets John Milton, and of course he's like had to be at the tippy top sky rise and everything like that. And they had this discussion, and he brings up like, oh, 64 wins. It's like, you got a secret to that? Because like that's pretty impressive, for any lawyer. It's like, and then Kevin admits that, in this particular courthouse, in the men's bathroom, is pretty close to the jury room. So, every so often he eavesdrops so that way he can like, gain the system in a way. And he just said like, just don't repeat it because I don't think like the Florida Bar Association will appreciate that. And it's like, why would you in a Florida plan, like in like the building plans, set in a courthouse, set a jury room next to a bathroom where anybody can hear what's going on? That's just like faulty planning, or at least make thicker walls for something like a jury room where people are deliberating. So it's kind of like you just asking for trouble. So I always thought that was like very weird to have that, at least have thicker walls. Or maybe they did and it just got, the courthouse just hasn't been renovated or something. I don't know. But it's just freaking weird. But anyway, Milton is like, so impressed with the kid. So he brought him onto the firm, hooked him and his wife up with this incredible apartment in Manhattan. And there's been like, there's like slowly but surely there's been like some wickedness afoot. And it all starts from this party where it's in the same apartment because like a lot of these people from the firm, like even like Milton, like all in this big kind of skyrise thing. And the way from what I research into this film, the way it's set up is kind of like they're doing the Paradise Lost, Dante's Inferno things where like there's levels that's always like a different form of like kind of like enticing or like trying to like tempt you in a way. There's always hot women that's with John Milton, and he keeps trying to like get him away from his wife by my ring lamp. He keeps trying to entice Kevin every which way possible just to keep him isolated from his wife. When they're at this party, she mentions right off the bat, don't leave me alone. Matter of fact, it plays well with what he was trying to do, but it's also kind of like a big thing where it's like couples go to some kind of function and only one person doesn't know anybody, so you don't want to leave them alone because they don't know who to talk to, or they just don't want to be left by themselves, that kind of thing. But Kevin ended up, leaving her alone at some point, and she ends up talking with John. And rewatching this, I haven't even noticed throughout all this time I ever watched this film, because I watched this like several times growing up. John, tells her about like, this is your hair, like it's a real like the way your hair is set up. It's like very very curly and it's like down to like the shoulder, and he mentions like you should cut it or like put up in like pin it up kind of thing. And she looks out on the party scene, and she noticed like anybody associated with the females or even the wives, who's a part of the firm, or at least in a relationship with anybody who's from the firm, have hair all pinned up. You can see like the fact that he's trying to control, because it's like he controlled everything. He's pretty much playing God in a way by being able to tell people like what to do, or at least in this case, females, or what to wear. But he's like, it's like, he's pretty much like whispering in her ear in a way. It's like very the snake and Eve in the Garden of Eden in a way. It's kind of like he's like just whispering like the neckline is like the gateway. It's like this is the first thing a guy would see. You don't want that. You don't want that covered, kind of just to coax her into getting her to do what he likes. And meanwhile, Kevin is talking with this other associate of his at the same firm, named like not Isabel, something Bell, Christabella, and this is played by Connie Nielsen. And Christabella, catching Kevin's eye as soon as he spotted her his first day at the firm. And they get to the talking and everything like that. Further temptation of like adultery, pretty much, because he's like noodling in his head, knowing for well he's like just came to this party with his wife, and it didn't dawn on him that he left her alone. So, but then he and a couple of other lawyers get called away by Milton to his room, where it's like he knows there's no bedroom, no like it's like, where does he sleep? Who says he sleep? Said the other lawyer, and like like where do you have sex? And John's like, everywhere. Then he calls them and let them know about one of their clients, played by Craig T. Nelson, Alexander Cullen, who has just been arrested for murdering his wife, his stepson, and the maid. And so he wants Kevin to take lead on this, which Eddie Barzoon, the firm's managing partner, played by Jeffrey Jones, who is, if you don't know, the father in Beetlejuice, Lydia's father. And without hesitation, Kevin jumps on in, saying like, "Oh, I got this." And John's pretty much like showing him like around like New York and everything like that. Learn the subways, Kevin. And it's like, they go check the guy out, and against his own, like, because he likes the lawyers he's been dealing with, because they've been experienced, he worked with lots of times, and now he's being this new guy's been thrown in his lap on like a big deal of a case against him, because he's complaining about how like I can't even see my daughter, my last child that I have left, because I got to see her under supervised visits from psychiatrists and doctors, and like caseworkers and stuff like that. And but with Slick talking with Kevin, it's like, you know, you got to get ahead of this, because uh, what's going to be on the paper, you don't like to deal with us or me, that's fine, but we need to get you ahead of this now. Then, afterwards, like, it's whatever. But what's on paper, on the newspaper right now, they're gonna be writing your story for you. So it's like, you don't want that. Uh, so while Kevin is preparing this case, this further pulls him away from Mary Ann, while she is like trying to like renovate the house, and with like Mrs. Heath, and like she's like starting to like see things, and like, because like now she's feeling isolated, and like something in this fucking house is very poltergeist, because something is in this apartment is as you mess with her mind, like there's a moment where like and this kind of, when I first saw this movie, I freaked the fuck out for the because like I can't even look at this thing to this day, because it's like hard to even look at. It's like Mrs. Heath, as she's pulling off her shirt, like there's like a demonic face stretched open, which kind of like freaks out Marianne till like for when she turns back around, and for a split second she turns back around and notices like, oh no, she got no more face now. It's like, but then she started seeing like stuff in the house. Like later on she see like some strange infant in her bathroom holding her extracted ovaries, which kind of freaks her out even more. She's like, very poltergeist. It's like she's very like or like the haunting is like she's seeing crap that's getting in her head, and which Kevin fully dismisses. It's like but he thinks like, oh, his mother's visiting, so like, okay, she can easily look after her. I still got to get this case done, and I can't have any distractions right now, despite them trying to plan on having like a baby and everything like that. And it's like, and then the fact that it compounds the problem, the fact that he's starting to see things when they trying to like, when they first try to make up, he's like as he's every time he pulls away, he sees, he kisses her, and then he pulls back and he sees Christabella instead of Marianne, and he still just doesn't say anything. He has a small reaction, but he just just continues further like incepting in his brain like the temptation of this other woman and not his wife. And pretty soon, like like during the case, excuse me, during the case, he managed to get off Cullen, despite the fact that when he was questioning, because the only alibi this guy had was him boning his secretary. Now, as he's questioning the secretary, about like, trying to prepare her, he comes to realize that she's full of crap, that they didn't have sex at all, because she doesn't even know whether or not he's circumcised. She's kind of like, floundering. Oh, I'm getting ahead of myself. Eddie Barzoon, who's apparently had been working, after a certain point started working with, trying to flip on the firm, because after, being like the manager here, he's kind of getting ousted by, John when he brings in Kevin Lomax. So he's getting Kevin's face on the street about it, and then he starts going off for the rest of his jog through Central Park. And after Kevin talked with Milton, you see like Milton like it was like a cool. It is pretty decent speeches, coming from like Pacino and then Reeves throughout this film. But Milton goes on about like how like God's favorite creatures, humanity and everything like that. How like how like Laura is supposed to be like these his creations, but they always end up falling short. Someone and using like Eddie Barzoon as a prime example, like fat and all that other stuff, fat and greedy and everything like that. And as he's running through the park, he's getting jumped on by demonic homeless people, and he ends up getting killed. That's when like Lomax finds out after he questions, or at least trying to prepare the his supposedly star witness. So when despite all that, he ends up getting him off, and then come to realize that this son of a bitch actually killed his, I think it was during that whole moment with questioning his witness, trying to prepare, he comes to realize that once again, he's representing a very guilty person. But despite all that, he still wanted to get his win. He's too vain. Lomax was too vain to even like consider the fact that, okay, I gotta remove myself. I cannot, in good conscience, defend a guy who is fucking guilty, at least so fucking guilty. I'm pretty sure lots of defense attorneys represent guys who are guilty, but they gotta represent them to the best of their abilities, like hashing out like, you're guilty. We both know you're guilty. I'm gonna represent you so you don't get like the harshest punishment, but you're gonna have to get punished because you're fucking out of your fucking mind. But after a while, he got a call that Marianne's at this church. She was like freaking out. As a matter of fact, while the mother was like visiting, she didn't bother to stay and look after her, or at least take her with her. That part always bugged me. In fact, like, because when the mother was visiting, she met Milton. She's very like fidgety and everything like that. Clearly, she knew him, and she was only there for like one day, and the next day she's like packing her bags, she's ready to go. And like, despite Kevin still dismissing all these like warnings from his mom and like his wife, is like, I gotta do this. Like, came all this way, I'm in the big leagues now, and I'm not giving it up. And so she pretty much is up and left without Marianne knowing, like, she's wigging out. And then Kevin goes to this church while she's sitting there in her bathrobe, and she tells Kevin that, like, Milton like raped her, and like he sees like all these like cuts and scratch marks, thinking she's like did any kind of did some self harm to her. But the way the cuts are, it's like you cannot feasibly say that all those are, because there's some places that she obviously cannot reach by herself to cause self-harm, but she end up getting committed. And like Marianne, like, while like Marianne's in the hospital, uh, Kevin and his mom are like, talking with a doctor. And then one of the other associates, working at the firm, what's her name? Pam, I think. Pam Garrity, whatever. She reveals herself to be a demon as well, and trying to entice Marianne's like, you'll get used to it. Kind of like, oh, you'll get used to it. You won't like, you won't feel alone, or it's like, it's like you'll feel right at home. You're it's trying to, like, as Milton mentions earlier in the film, that's our secret. We'll kill you with kindness, kind of situation. They're just trying to, like, entice Marianne. It's like, you'll get used to it. You'll come with us. We'll be here for you. And it's like, you don't have to worry, kind of situation. Marianne hits her with like a face mirror or a handheld mirror, and as she runs to the room and locks the door behind her, she ends up taking like a piece of glass and cuts her own throat and dies, which which upsets Kevin and his mom. And the mom comes clean about, like, decades ago she met Milton when she was visiting New York, and he raped her, which resulted in him. But she always wanted to, just stay away from New York. That was the reason why she never wanted to leave. And she always mentions how she always suspected that he somehow, like, found, she was gonna, like, she always suspected that he was gonna eventually find them. She was kind of hoping it wouldn't happen. So Kevin went to go confront him, and this is probably my favorite part in the entire scene in the entire film. This confrontation between Milton and Lomax. Brilliant acting from both of these guys, and, like, brandishing a gun. Kevin asks, like, what'd you do to my wife? And, like, he admits, like, yeah, like, I raped your wife, and then, like, Kevin unloads, on him, and the bullets don't do anything. And, like, he comes to the realization that, John Milton is Lucifer. And, Lucifer tells him, like, he shows Christabella, saying, like, this is your half sister. There's the reason why you two are drawn to each other. It's like, I need an heir, the Antichrist. And in case you don't know, like, the Antichrist is, formed by usually union between, like, because obviously incest is, like, very frowned upon in all kind of circles. So that, the fruits of the two combined genetics, he wants, like, that at the seat of the table of all this. And, he trying to, like, further tempt Lomax. It's like, he goes on this diatribe about how, like, about, like, the inside tip about God. And it's like, it's one of my favorite lines from the film is where it's like, like, basically, like, God makes you, like, jumps all these hoops, look, I would never do what, he does. Like, like, it's like, like, he tells you, like, look, but don't touch, don't taste, don't swallow. And while you jumping from one hoop to the next, he's laughing his sick fucking ass off. He's a tight ass. He's a sadist. And it's like, I love that line read from Al Pacino. Honestly, it's just phenomenal. But it's pretty much like trying to get in like, Kevin's head. Pretty much like, guy is supposed to be like the biggest manipulator of them all. And it's like, he calls himself, the way like, he states it, he's a self-proclaimed humanist. It's like, like I'm down there with you guys. Like I don't judge mankind. I'm right there with you guys. And it's like, where's God and all that? Kind of basically is what he's saying. Like, like I'm in the thick of it with you guys. Like I don't judge any of you. But then, as he's, getting further, like, Crisabella's kissing on Kevin, Kevin like backs away, and it's like, and then more awesome line read from Al Pacino. It's like, who are you holding those bricks for, or those bags for? Like, let it all go, because because basically it's like he's trying to, like, you gotta like you pretty much like come to me like you don't have to hold all that weight, and pretty much trying to get, and that's almost in any kind of supernatural or demonic thing or whatever, like like the TV show Supernatural or Ghost Rider or whatever like that. It's like, the only reason, like, demons or the devil or trying to get at a human to like fall prey to him or wherever is usually by, not only temptation, but like the agreement. You have to say yes. It's like free will is an all absolute thing in like religion, especially Christianity or Catholicism. It's like God gave mankind free will. Like no one can allow to make humanity do anything without them actually agreeing to it verbally. And that's the whole point of the whole temptation. They have to entice them. They can't make them usually. So and that's the whole crux of this last part is like about like a nice little callback to earlier in the film. It was like after Kevin comes to realization, like, but you need my permission. And it's like, I always quote this, like, for the longest time, I always quote this line from Pacino. It's like, free will, it is a bitch. And, he's like, are we negotiating? Always. And clearly, like, you see, like, off to a side where, like, Crisabella's holding, like, a knife. She's planning on, like, killing this dude after he, agrees and does the deed and impregnates her. They're going to kill him. And it's like, Kevin's, like, asking, Lucifer, like, what about love? And pretty much, like, all illusion is no different from eating large quantities of chocolate, which I don't even know if that's even scientifically true. There's a lot of people who say that from like different like pop culture stuff that I've watched. Like not a lot, but it's like a good handful of times I heard that line, and it's like, eating tons of chocolate, does that give you the equivalent of feeling love? I don't know. Don't know if Mythbusters actually cover that, but then Kevin decides, he looks at Lucifer as like, yeah, free will, and then he shoots himself with his last bullet in the head, pretty much neutralizing any hope of an antichrist, ruined Lucifer's plans, and he's like wigging out, and like the scene, transitions back to the moment of that the courtroom bathroom, and this time, uh, uh, Kevin's making a different decision and decides to recuse himself from the thing, and it's like you know, and it's like and starting to make different decisions, because especially about the child molester. Because I forgot to mention, after the Eddie Barzoon's funeral, Kevin was approached by it's pretty much like the equivalent of the the kind of police that IAB. It's kind of like internal investigations. It's kind of like the same thing, like equivalent to that for lawyers, where they was approached by this guy. He was approached by this guy who mentions that A's about to give us everything, and all of a sudden he died, and like you're rising up pretty fast, and he brings up the fact that the guy he represented in Florida that he got off was caught recently with a body of a 10-year-old in the trunk of his car, realizing that all that could have easily been avoided if he didn't get this guy off and like make sure he would have gone to jail, and that could have been avoided. And now like he's back in the past, with his wife alive again and everything like that. It's like, okay, we'll make different decisions. I'm accusing myself of like screw this guy, screw all that. I'm staying here in Florida with my wife, and like just whatever. But then the reporter that he ran into in the bathroom mentions like like, you can give me a quote. It's like I can like you be famous, kind of, and he's like Kevin agrees for an interview as he's walking away with his wife, and then the lawyer changes into Milton, and the movie ends, kind of like highlighting the fact that Kevin haven't fully changed. He still has this some shred of vanity in him, and it's like this is a pretty damn good movie. And it's like the whole theme with like temptations, vanity, like free will, and like this whole not shot for shot, but it's kind of like these little little specks here and there of stuff that you can easily glean from. Oh, they got that from Paradise Lost. Oh, that is from Dante's Inferno, that kind of thing. But like what I impress more with is just the dialogue, and just and there's certain shots, the camera work is just visually impressive. So it's just like kind of practical with very minimal CGI, and whatever CGI they use very sprinkles here and there, where it's kind of used to less is more kind of situation. So it kind of got more bang for their buck. But for all intents and purposes, it's very practical. But yeah, very good film. Aside from the fact that like the whole courtroom, like the jury room being so close to the bathroom, that's weird. And then the mom didn't bother to take the wife, knowing she mentions how like she's worried about his wife, and it's like, why don't you he said like take care of her. Well, you could have just easily like just you going back to Florida anyway, you might as well took the wife with you, so that way she wouldn't get caught up in this in the first place. But speaking of which, it's like, and I almost forgot about this other line where I do not want to end this video not mentioning about how like Milton mentions that after Lomax is blaming him for like what happened to Marianne and everything like that. It's like, well, Marianne, you blaming me for Marianne? You could have taken her home anytime. You can. I just set the stage. You pretty much did everything else, and you could have walked off. You could have gone, back home with Marianne anytime you want. You didn't want to do because as he mentions, like like it was your vanity that refused. Because I mentioned to you every time, what were my words to you? We will, like, I would understand. Like maybe it's your time to lose, and it was like a nice response, and right on cue with Keanu Reeves, like, lose? I don't lose. I win. That's my job. I'm a lawyer. That's my job. That's what I do. And like, I rest my case. And that vanity is like, it's like vanity is like really, hits home here. It's like, that's what the whole thing with like, like the Dante's Inferno kind of thing. It's like, vanity, but it's like, it's like, it's like enviness, or not enviness, but you know what I mean? Like like different sins as you're going through, like, certain circles, but Kevin comes to the realization that in a way, he's right. I could have gone off this roller coaster any time I want, and I chose not to because, like, despite the temptations, I still walked through the door. So it's like I could have just, left home, cared for my wife like I should have. And there's like an awesome delivery and use of like dubbing where it's like John, repeated, not only repeated what Lomax told him earlier in the film, but in his own voice, very creepily. It's like, you know what scares me, John? I leave the case, I take care of her, then I hate her for it. And it's like, this is kind of creepy, but it's like awesome. But yeah, a lot of stuff is, very good, very well done film. Like another one of my favorite Keanu Reeves films. But we're not done yet with the whole occultish thing with Keanu Reeves. In a few minutes, I'll be going over my spoiler review for Keanu Reeves' Constantine. So don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff to Talkative Carl. Links are in the description. And please let me know what you think of this film if you've seen it before. But I also highly encourage you, in case you haven't seen it, I know I spoiled it for you, but I still highly recommend this film, especially if you're a Keanu Reeves fan. And it's like, he had like his, before his lows, he had his highs way before his renaissance. But I've always been a fan of Keanu Reeves. He's like, he's a very, very good actor. One of my favorites. Matter of fact, little tidbit here. In the making of this movie, Keanu Reeves was willing to, because like, to bring in Al Pacino and everything like that, he was willing, at least meet the certain demands of Al Pacino. Reeves was willing to take a pay cut to fulfill this needs, because like, he want to get this movie like like done, and like, everything moving like, copacetically. And it's like, he sacrifices a bit of his money just to get this, movie done, and like, like got the right actors for the job and everything like that. Like, completely selfless of a man. And it's like, man, this dude's too nice, man. It's like, wow. It's like, no grudges at all about it. It's like, yeah, look, they asked him, would you willing to take a pay cut, for Pacino and everything like that? Yeah, sure. If we gotta, to make sure we get this movie out, done, and everything like that, I will do that. And so let me know what you think of The Devil's Advocate. Like, where does it rank for you so far as like Keanu Reeves film? Like, how high would you rank it on your list of favorite Keanu Reeves films? And I will see you guys in a little bit. Take care. And thank you for the recent subscribers. I've been getting like a good chunk here and there throughout the recent days of new subscribers. Like Kaylee recently subscribed. So Shout out to you, and I will